2 Samuel chapter 18. And David mustered the people who were with him, and set commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds over them. And David sent out 1/3 of the people under the hand of Joab, and 1/3 under the hand of Abishai, son of Zeruiah, Joab's brother, and 1/3 under the hand of Ittai, the Gittite. And the sovereign said to the people, I shall certainly go out with you too. But the people answered, Do not go out, for if we flee away, they would not set heart upon us. Even if half of us die, they would not set heart upon us. For now 10,000 are like us. Therefore it is better for you to support us from the city. And the sovereign said to them, That which is good in your eyes I do. And the sovereign stood beside the gate, and all the people went out by hundreds and by thousands. And the sovereign ordered Joab and Abishai and Ittai, saying, Be gentle with the young man, Absalom, for my sake. And all the people heard when the sovereign gave all the commanders orders concerning Absalom. So the people went out into the field to meet Israel, and the battle was in the forest of Ephraim. And the people of Israel were smitten there before the servants of David, and the slaughter there that day was great, 20,000. And the battle there was scattered over the face of all the land, and the forest devoured more people that day than the sword devoured. And when Absalom met the servants of David, Absalom was riding on a mule, and the mule went under the thick branches of a great terebinth tree, and his head caught hold in the terebinth, and he was suspended between the heavens and earth, while the mule which was under him passed on. And a certain man saw it, and informed Joab, and said, Look, I saw Absalom hanging in a terebinth tree. And Joab said to the man who informed him, Now look, you saw, and why did you not strike him to the earth there? Then I would have given you 10 pieces of silver and a belt. But the man answered Joab, Though I were to receive 1,000 pieces of silver in my hand, I would not raise my hand against the son of the sovereign, because in our hearing the sovereign commanded you and Abishai and Ittai, saying, Take heed, you who go against the youth, against Absalom. Otherwise I would have been untrue to my own life, for no matter is hidden from the sovereign, and you yourself would have set yourself against me. And Joab said, Let me not waste time here with you. And he took 3 spears in his hand, and thrust them through Absalom's heart, while he was still alive in the midst of the terebinth tree. And 10 young men, who bore Joab's armor, went around and struck Absalom, and put him to death. And Joab blew with the shofar, and the people returned from pursuing Israel, for Joab had held the people back. And they took Absalom, and threw him into a large pit in the forest, and heaped a very large pile of stones over him. And all Israel fled, each one to his tent. And Absalom, in his lifetime, had taken and set up a monument for himself, which is in the sovereign's valley, for he said, I have no son to keep my name in remembrance. And he called the monument after his own name, and to this day it is called Absalom's monument. And Ahimaaz, son of Zadok, said, Please, let me run and take the news to the sovereign, for Yahuwah has avenged him of his enemies. But Joab said to him, You are not the man to take the news today, but you shall take the news another day. But today you do not take news, because the sovereign's son is dead. And Joab said to the Cushite, Go inform the sovereign what you have seen. And the Cushite bowed himself to Joab and ran. And Ahimaaz, son of Zadok, said again to Joab, And whatever might be, please let me also run after the Cushite. And Joab said, Why would you run, my son? There is no news to bring you reward. And whatever might be, he said, Let me run. So he said to him, Run. And Ahimaaz ran by the way of the plain and passed the Cushite. Now David was sitting between the 2 gates, and the watchman went up to the roof over the gate, to the wall, and lifted his eyes and looked, and saw a man running alone. So the watchman called out and told the sovereign, and the sovereign said, If he is alone, there is no news in his mouth. And he came nearer and nearer, and the watchman saw another man running, and the watchman called out to the gatekeeper and said, See, a man running by himself. And the sovereign said, This one is also bringing news. And the watchman said, I see the running of the first is like the running of Ahimaaz, son of Zadok. And the sovereign said, This is a good man, and he comes with good news. And Ahimaaz called out and said to the sovereign, Peace. Then he bowed down with his face to the earth before the sovereign and said, Blessed be Yahuwah, your Elohim, who has surrendered the man who raised their hand against my master the sovereign. And the sovereign said, Peace to the young man. To Absalom? And Ahimaaz answered, When Joab sent the sovereign's servant and me, your servant, I saw a great crowd, but I did not know why. And the sovereign said, Turn aside and stand here. And he turned aside and stood still. And see, the Cushite came. And the Cushite said, Receive news, my master, the sovereign. For Yahuwah has avenged you this day of all those who rose against you. And the sovereign said to the Cushite, Peace to the young man. To Absalom? And the Cushite answered, Let the enemies of my master, the sovereign, and all who rise against you for evil be as that young man is. And the sovereign was shaken, and went up to the room over the gate, and wept. And as he went, he said this, O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I had died instead of you. O Absalom, my son, my son.